Good morning, everybody.
Aww.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, BJ. Good to see you. See, we've got a few more people coming in.
See you also.
Lisa, I just put in create a poem about renewal. It was comical.
By the end, the interpretive poetry recitation is all yours.
The final quote of the poem: one more binder, one more chart. Charter renewal's quite an art. That's
Yes.
that's fun.
That's awesome.
Perfect launch.
Okay,
I see
so
familiar faces on joining. I'm excited.
while we're waiting, as people are going to start filtering in for our guests, if you wouldn't mind, just in the chat, if you could just put your name, the role that you play in the organization, where you're at in the charter renewal cycle, if you're upcoming soon, or if you're in the wave of them coming in that 26-27 school year, and then like the renewal track that you're on, high, middle, or low performing. So we just kind of get an understanding of all that. So if you could just throw that information in the chat for us while we wait, we'll get started here in just a moment.
Excited to see where everybody is on this journey. Hi, Ryan Dorsey from the Lewis Center team.
Hey, Lisa.
I have to say, I have to give a shout out to Greg Forrest, who's on the line, who helped Norton in the very beginning. We wouldn't have had our current campus if not for Greg and his helping us get through a whole different battle other than charter renewal. So very excited to see you on here.
Thanks, Lisa. Glad to be here. Looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, I think we can go ahead and start rolling forward, and we'll get off with some brief introductions to the team here, and then get straight into business. So I'll start with myself. My name is Adam Caudell, and I'm an education analyst. I'm sitting there looking at this picture, and I see research right underneath my name for Marshall, but no, education analyst with Parsec Education. And so in my role, amongst many things that I do, I come out of education. So I am a former classroom teacher. I taught math for many years. I was a site administrator at a comprehensive high school of over 3,000 students, where I was the dean of curriculum instruction and assessment. So I did all things from PLC to state testing and everything in between. So after doing that for 5 years, I went off, left public education and joined the private sector, where I was with Curriculum Associates for 5 years, training people and all the fun stuff as it related to iReady and the other products there. And then I came and I joined Parsec. And so my role is to really, to help educational leaders understand their data and frame it through the lens of an educational leader, right? Because I do come with a very strong data background in terms of analytics and coding and all that. But I also have been in the shoes of an administrator, having to lead and make big decisions based on data. So I help kind of bring that context into reality and assist in those. So that's sort of my role there. So that's me. I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Marshall, and then we'll introduce our special guests. So Marshall.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marshall. I'm an educator. I feel like our title always changes, but at the heart of it, I'm an educator, and that's been my profession for 20 years. This conversation is near and dear to my heart. I worked at a inner city charter in Indianapolis that was under a mayor's charter. They were our authorizer, which is unique in Indiana. And I'll never forget the day that the state came in to evaluate our work after we had done everything we could. And they said, you know, your scores aren't meeting the growth indices, so we're going to have to think about non-renewal. And my CEO looked at them and said, you just tell us where all these kids go, because we served a really unique group. So that was the first time as a young educator I realized, number one, the power of a charter and how powerful it was for kids. And number two, how hard it is to tell the story, especially when you're bound by just, you know, quantified data and changing enrollment and different kids are in your school. So I really have a heart for this renewal conversation because I know the work charters are doing. So then how do you tell that story well and fit within the state system to make sure you know, are able to successfully renew? So I'm excited to join. I work at Parsec. I'm the liaison between educators and technology. So at Parsec, we want to make sure that our technology is developed by educators for educators. So rather than having a bunch of tech folks designing for you, we try to make sure we mesh educational experts with that technology. So that's my role. And I'm also Adam's personal assistant. So I'm here to make sure he has all things he needs for this webinar. So thanks for everybody for joining. I do just want to say, this is a discussion between people that are all doing the same work. So Lisa and Heather, they've just got incredible insights, but I know you're all peers and you have insights as well. So I'd encourage everyone to make sure you feel comfortable jumping in and engaging in dialogue. That's typically where we get the most learning. So
Absolutely.
with that, I'll turn it back over to the boss, Adam, who can introduce our guests.
Well, I was going to just go ahead and pass it off to Lisa. Lisa, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the team.
Hi, welcome everybody. Yep, just like both Adam and Marshall said, Heather and I are in this work with you together. I am the president CEO for the Lewis Center for Educational Research. We have 2 K-12 charters, one in Apple Valley that's a district authorized charter school, one of the first round 30 years in the charter business, and then Norton Science and Language Academy, which is a countywide benefit charter that is located in downtown San Bernardino. So we serve 2 totally different communities, demographics, both full seat K-12 charters. Norton, that we're going to be talking about today, is unique in that we are a dual language immersion 90-10 model, so pure in TK through 5, and then that goes to a pathway in secondary. And we have our first graduating class this school year, so it's a huge milestone. Recently, we are 4 years on a new campus. We were in a very old campus that has a whole story that Greg would know a lot about. Built a new campus, and we're able to expand to high school, so really realize that dream. And Norton is 17 years of operation. So that's who we are. I'm a teacher, middle school teacher, and vice principal, chief academic officer, and have been in my role now for completing my 9th year. I just celebrated the 9-year anniversary as CEO of the Lewis Center. So, and then Heather is my right hand. We actually were on our teaching team together. So we're a great 6th grade middle school teaching team, and have been here for all of these years together. Heather, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be part of this discussion today. And I would say that Lisa and I had quite the adventure this year, as along with our partners in the county offices, of trying to figure all this out and sell our story, basically. So anyway, we're excited to share that information with you, and then let you know how Parsec has I don't know, at least for me anyway, has just really helped us through this process. Without Adam and all his insight, I'm not sure we could have made it. So we are so appreciative. I can't wait to share that story. So like Lisa said, I started out I actually started my career as an accountant and then moved into teaching. So I've been a teacher for 25 years this year. And 21 of those years have been with the Lewis Center. I taught 6th grade, taught everything from the ground up, science, social studies, English, math, all of it, PE. Once I got my master's degree in ed tech, I asked Lisa, hey, what can we do next? And I want to be there for that as the Lewis Center continues to grow. And so started out with as a TOA and then just moved into a coordinator of assessments and programs. And I still say that's a fancy title for, like, I handle all the assessments, the WASC, the charter, any type of reporting that needs to be done, SARCs and so forth, along with our partners with Lisa and the rest of the administration. I oversee that as well as coach teachers. So a little bit of everything.
Nice. Good times. Well, so what we're going to talk about today is just sort of the chunks of our webinar here. Is we're going to first just kind of talk about that charter renewal life cycle and the support, kind of what is the reality going into it, and then what does that look like throughout. And then through that, through this life cycle, as I was working with Lisa and her team, we uncovered some really key insights that not only helped tell their story when they needed it, but also just gave them, even if it was data that might not have even found itself into the renewal petition or the presentation, but just the fact that this data came about and it said, wow, we really can take some action and make some changes based on that. All of those came out. So we'll talk about some of that. And then as the key learnings that came out of this whole process and how they're going to use this process now as they start prepping for their next round of renewal here in the next couple of years. And so first off, I just want to level set. And I know that for those of you living and breathing in the charter world, you're aware of the different criterion for which you are placed in either high or low performing, right? You're either high performing, you're low performing. And if you're neither, you're mid performing. And so there's the criterion, which is based on the performance colors on the California dashboard, which is sort of the default that most will go by. But as you know, there are some school sites especially that have a smaller student population where they have their student groups may not qualify for a color, because as you know, on the California dashboard, you need to have at least 30 students in any particular student group to qualify for a color. And when you don't have that, then we can default to criterion 2, which is the status, right? It's the actual metric calculation rather. And so this is the 2 criterion that the state uses sort of to establish which renewal track you're on. So that was just really us kind of level setting. But when we first met with Lisa and her team, we just did a quick kind of level setting, like an onboarding that just walked them through our phase, right? The way that we work to support, because we want to make sure that the expectations of this are clear going in, like, hey, we're here to back you up on your data story and making sure that the data tells the right story and that the insights behind it are true and accurate and reflective of that, right? We're not writing the actual petition, though you'll find out through this conversation that I was involved many times with reviewing and making sure the accuracy of the petition as it was. But, really that life cycle was, we met for the first workshop and I basically gave a massive, like, just data drop on them. And we went through enrollment, we went through state testing and California dashboard, local assessment, the whole bit. And then through that workshop, then the questions started surfacing, and then the conversations and the dialogue started happening. You're like, Adam, I really want to explore this a little bit deeper. That was really interesting. Can we explore that a little deeper? And so that would sort of lead us into the work at workshop 2, where we would explore something and go into some other type of analysis, all leading up to then workshop 3, where we're able to take all of these insights, put it together in that petition and really say, hey, look, this is our story and let's just make sure. And so that was kind of the overarching sequence that we did through this. And really it was just all into the effort to kind of add clarity to what is it that we're trying to accomplish through this renewal, right? Because as you know, charter renewal isn't guaranteed, especially when schools are in the lower performing category. They really have to make a very strong and compelling case that their students are showing progress and warrant keeping their doors open, right? And data itself, it's messy. It's not always just this cut and dry thing. You really have to dig through it and add the local context. This was a true partnership because I live about 4.5, 5 hours away from San Bernardino. I don't know that community. I don't know those students, whereas Lisa and her team are, deeply in tune with that. So what I could present on the surface as, here is what your data is showing, they were able to go below the surface. You're like, here's why the data is showing that. And we were able to craft a very compelling story as like, this is what the data is and why the data is. And that's the key piece there. And so that's why we really need to present not only that quantitative element, the hard and fast facts, but there is a measure of qualitative that has to back it to help authorizers and community members and all other stakeholders to understand the why behind the what. And that was really where we spent a good bulk of our time. And so I want to just now transition over to Lisa and Heather and just kind of let you kind of share back on your experience of that life cycle, kind of beginning to end, and what that experience was for you.
Yeah, it was a different experience. So, Heather and I have gone through several renewals between our two charters together. And I would say that the environment that you describe now is so much more difficult. And then Norton fell into low performing track. So basically, we are fighting for our lives. I do want to share that Angel Arrington is online. She represents the charter school office for our authorizer and is just such an amazing partner with us every single day. And we're really fortunate to have that relationship. But we had opposition on the board, or I guess pushback from the board that we hadn't previously ever experienced. So we also had it wasn't just a guarantee, where we have really strong support, I think, in our community and working with community groups. But for the first time, I feel like, one, we were low performing, so that already put us at a disadvantage. And then two, having to be more persuasive to get a couple of the votes than we normally always just had, really that across the board, if you guys get what I'm saying. So one election can change everything, right? So I think that going through this process, also involving Angel and the charter school office, especially in that second session, they sat in there with us as our team was looking at our data, able to look at it from the authorizer's point of view as we're going into this new world and of renewal, and saying, like, what do we think is really telling that most solid story. And then I think that our work with Parsec has been almost in two parallel lanes, right? Like, we're working on the charter renewal process, but we're also really committed to trying to figure out what are those root causes that are going to get us into middle and high performing track. And we were able to look at things, and as Marshall always says, like, interrogate the data in ways that we've never been able to do traditionally. And we have come to some different conclusions, and we definitely have different action plans than we would have prior to going through this cycle. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, Heather.
Oh, I think you mainly covered it. When you're talking, I'm just thinking about our initial conversations with Adam and Marshall, and I just think for us, it was just that openness, like, hey, here's what we know. Where else can we go? And I think that that's really how Parsec helped facilitate our overall presentation for charter renewal. Was really just like, well, they were listening to the story of the specific kids and where we're at with attendance with particular subgroups and so forth. Just the little things that when you first look at the dashboard or you're looking at any of your data that maybe you don't see. And I felt like Parsec really did listened to our story and helped us dig through the data to tell that story, where we probably on our own would not have found that.
And I want to say my favorite part is when we thought we knew something. We were very convicted that this is the reason why. So we're a growing school, right? We had a lot of seats open at the secondary level. So we brought in all new kids to our system in high school. And so in our mind, the story we told ourselves a lot was, well, it's the new kids. They just haven't acclimated to our system yet. But some of the data didn't support that story, and we really were forced to look at things differently. And we're able to do that. And so it's just really has, as an instructional leader, has really changed my approach to that same story that we tell ourselves. So.
Well, and I would just jump in and say, for us, Heather and Lisa, you know, it makes me think at one point in my career, I was a professor and I was helping grad students write dissertations. And one problem they always had is a doctoral student would come to me and they would say, they would say, I'm stuck. Like I can't write my literature review. I just am stuck. And it's like, well, have you read all the research? Have you really digested all the research? Do you have a deep understanding of the topic? And you would a lot of times find that they would try to just jump to the writing, but they wouldn't take the time for the learning and the ingestion and the pondering and the thinking. And if you really understood the topic at a super deep level, writing the lit review was super easy. And that's what I found with Lisa and Heather in a lot of charter folks that we work with is taking the time to like put renewal aside, honestly, like put the like stress or, you know, whatever comes with renewal, kind of put that aside for a second. And that's what we would joke about, like put your data in the middle of a chair and shine a light on it and like interrogate it. And one thing that Lisa and Heather did really well is they would say, this is the story, but I'm curious, like, let's dig into that. And for some of their stories, we would like, it would be confirmed. Yeah, you're right. Like, this is what's happening at this grade level. You're dead on. And other times, Lisa and Heather were really interested in learning and like deeply studying what's happening for their kids, sometimes by classroom level. I mean, just very interested in like what is happening and are we serving our kids well? And because they spent so much time and they had such a heart for that data early, it built so much capital that when it became time to tell the story or to demonstrate by the state guidelines that they had met renewal, it was really easy for them to pick out the nuggets at that point because they had done the work of like figuring out what was happening. And sometimes it's so hard to block off time and it's so hard to like allow that space, but it's so valuable in the process, or else it's just you get kind of stuck. So that's one thing we really saw in Heather and Lisa that we appreciated is how much they took the time to like learn and interrogate, which then made the writing and the processing and the application stuff move a lot faster.
Right on. So speaking of then the data, we'll just go through some of the key insights that we pulled out, some of the data. So this is by no means an exhaustive presentation of the data that was presented through the charter renewal process, but certainly ones that we wanted to just kind of call out and highlight. And so here's just for the group, you know, this is the snapshot. This is the mosaic of students represented there at Norton. So roughly about 1,200 enrolled. About 78% of them are socioeconomic disadvantaged, about 15% students with disabilities, 32% English learners. So this just kind of helps paint the picture of the reality that Lisa and her team are working with, the students that they're serving on a day-to-day. And so we'll just kind of, you know, go through some of these data pieces. But before I do switch over, is there anything else to the picture that you want to add to this?
No, I just would say the uniqueness of our program is that we're like I mentioned, we're a dual immersion program. And so it's all classes in TK through 5. So there's no other pathway. All of our students are enrolled in dual immersion, which is very unique. And we draw from 22 school districts.
Okay.
So have a
That's great context.
yeah.
So I started out with just a quick overview of their 5-year enrollment trends. And so you can see that there's been a continued uptick over the last, several years where the enrollment continues to grow. And as does the, particularly one that stood out to us with the students with disabilities is that number creeps up a little bit more each and every year. And so I'd just be interested in terms of just your overall enrollments and the impact that perhaps has on your overall performance, if this is something you'd like to speak to.
I will say, when you break it down by grade level too, as we're bringing in new students, right? A lot of times as charters, people come to our schools because they're unsatisfied with the education they're receiving in their neighborhood school.
Mhm.
And so in our secondary grades, our special ed population is about 25%. And of course, so we're low performing. We're getting ready for CASP testing. Our testing window starts next week. Our current 11th grade grade level is 1/3 special education. So that's also just a complicating factor and part of the reason we need to be able to tell that data story.
Yeah.
So 15% school-wide, but very different in some grade levels.
But one thing we can definitively say is that when we look at your new students that are enrolled with you in their first year versus those that have put in the time and have been with you for at least, in this case, 8 years that we're seeing, I mean, there's a very definitive performance improvement between those two groups. And I know that this really speaks and as is a testament to the quality of your programs there, that we know that you have no control over really the students that you have and when they come to you, but you are making significant gains when those students stay with you long term. Is there something you'd like to speak to on this?
Yeah, and I would say the English language arts definitely this slide bolsters what we know dual immersion research states, is that once students are in the program, they will then start to outperform their peers. And so it's really difficult to come into a dual language immersion program at any point. But once our students are staying with us, we know that that gap really accelerate. So that's what this slide tells us.
Yes.
And I just want to add a little bit just to that. I mean, in all my experience in the charter world, parents bring their kids to our school to provide a safer environment, a more rigorous education. And so as a school, especially as a TK-12 school, we want to see those students who have been in our program from TK or kinder on really grow, and we would presume that they would do better, and that's then our students who are just coming in either a year or two, and that's what we showed here. And that's not necessarily something that the charter renewal is requesting, but we felt, since, because of the original decision to be at a charter school, what parents are saying, that it was important to point out that, hey, the students in our long-term program are benefiting more than students who are coming from somewhere else within the district or outside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and one of the unique, I guess, analyses that we do here with Parsec is that statewide comparison. And this one here, excuse me, this one here isn't even a statewide comparison. This is, when we first met in that first workshop, I had asked like, hey, if, being a kind of brick and mortar site versus like those that can, draw on virtually, and the I guess the geography is a bit more spread out. You guys basically serve a neighborhood, and your students would otherwise kind of be coming from some of these other surrounding schools within the district. And so we just thought, hey, if there's a list of schools that your students would otherwise be going to if they weren't coming to you, let's just kind of look at how they would be doing in comparison. And so I'm bringing up math here as an example, that to that local context, your students, and you can see along the bottom here too, your students have outperformed those neighborhood schools year after year after year. They are the highest performing in math relative to those.
Yeah, I want to really speak to this slide too, because I think as charter leaders, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but for me, in going through the charter renewal process, right, it can be kind of scary. And I think sometimes as the leaders, we want to protect our staff and our community from that vulnerability that we face, right? And so, because you don't want them to leave, or you don't want them to doubt and say, oh, we're not going to be renewed, or to get scared, or to not understand that some of this is political and there's nuances. And so for me, I'm always kind of balancing that line about like, how much do I want to shield them from and just take on myself, because I think it's going to be okay. We've got this, that kind of thing. I know how hard they're working. Like, there is no staff that's better than our staff here at NSLA. And our students are amazing. Our families are amazing. And you don't want to freak them out, right? So, but this time, because of this new environment, we really had to say like, hey, we have no appeal rights as a countywide benefit charter. We have to go all in. We got community letters. We did all of this, right? So we were in it before we found this slide. And I've got to be honest, we were feeling like we're such failures. Like, everybody's working so hard. Our kids are working hard. Our teachers are working hard. We love our school. What more can we do, right? We were just a little bit at wit's end. And when Adam showed this, I don't even remember at what thing, we had a big team of us, and it was like, this slide was one that just gave us a little bit of a window, a little bit of hope. And then our principal is able to share this with the staff. Like we're not alone in struggling with math, right? And everybody, our neighbors are struggling too. And if our kids were to go next door to the district school that is literally next door to us, they're within this 5, right? And we're doing, it's okay. Like, we need to do better, but also like we're in this with everybody else who's struggling, who serves the same demographic or the same community of students that we're serving. I don't know. So just for us, it gave us a little bit of hope. And it also, I think, really read, and Angel, feel free to chime in anytime. I think this slide really did help a couple of the board members justify, like, hey, Norton is in the best interest of students, which is one of the things they had to vote on. So
it was definitely helpful. And I'm sorry, I was answering an email partially, but a couple of them commented on it, and it was super helpful just to kind of back up their whole, meaningful steps and the schools that kids would otherwise attend. So I really appreciated it.
yeah.
That's pretty awesome to see the full cycle, right? Like, right on this call, you can see how an organization is like doing their best to serve kids and families, telling that story, and then authorizers, like how they're receiving those stories. And it's neat to see that full cycle. And it's always interesting to think about. At my last job, I was at a different consulting firm. We helped authorizers. So it was all about helping the authorizer. Like, how do you set up a good authorizing relationship? And how do you provide adequate autonomy? Like, go do what you want to do, like go help kids and families, while still creating some like clear and fair accountability measures. It's this like autonomy with accountability. That's the authorizing, discussion. So it's really cool, even in this webinar, to see like that role and how that can be really positive. Doesn't mean it's weak. It means it's very clear and it's very fair. Like, do kids have available really great options because of the charter school existing? And so I think that storyline is neat to kind of see even in that relationship.
And also, I'd like to remind the group, and Lisa put it in the chat there too, that this really is an opportunity for discussion. So if at any time throughout this webinar, something pops up and you just have a question, feel free to either drop it in the chat or even come off of mute. We would welcome that. So just want to make sure that you understand the open forumness of this, that we would love to hear if you have anything. So here's another version of that, because what we just showed was a nice to have, right? We understand that, like, the authorizers don't have to consider where your organization is relative to the neighborhood, but you do have to show comparison to statewide, right? That is part of it, right, to be able to show. So we just looked at All the schools statewide that serve K-12 that have at least 50% of their students are socioeconomic disadvantaged, knowing that that Norton was 78%. And then we have 15% English learners, again, knowing that Norton was up there much higher. But those were the thresholds we did, and we found 73 schools. And, you know, just shy of middle is where Norton showed up. So on the ELA, they're about 31. So still in the upper 50th percentile. And then as well as 32 out of the 73, still in the upper half. So already we're able to show that if similar schools statewide, Norton's or NSLA was better than at least half of them, or more than half of them, that are of similar demographics. And so we started here, but we really wanted to get into the weeds. And this is, like I said, when I first presented this chart to them, this was all well and good, but they're like, you know, but I really want to see how we're doing at the different grade level spans, right? Because we are K-12, but ideally, like, let's kind of look at it. And so we sort of made that transition now of statewide schools, but really drilling into those elementary, middle, and high school bands. And you can see here, as those numbers have kind of shifted, they're actually slightly better performing within the grade bands, right? Now we're at like 29 and 24 of 71 schools for the elementary, 25 and 34 out of 70 when it comes to just the middle school. So this, I think, was a really great way to kind of parse it out across those grade bands. And I'd love to hear now again from Lisa and the team about like how this resonated.
Yeah, I just think that it was helpful to see, similar to what I said before about our neighboring comparisons, seeing how we are statewide was also helpful internally and externally. I think this was something that the board definitely considered. It also helped us really see some bright spots. So it was the first time for us to ever test 11th grade. And we were so excited. Like, those kids took that test so seriously. So to see them 13 out of 65 was huge kudos to that particular department. And then you can see where we struggle. But even in that case, I don't know, sad that we're in such good company, right? Like, everybody's really struggling with math. We don't like that our students across California are struggling. But it helps to know, I guess, that you're in company. But it did show, and it helped us look at by grade level.
I think also it helped us as we're in this decision-making process, whether it be staff or it's
Yes.
professional development, curriculum, whatever. This also helped us to break down, like, where are our greatest needs? Where are we going to put those interventions and so forth? So this really just kind of helped clarify. Also, we already knew somewhat, right? Because we're on the ground, but this really just helped us to identify and share with staff, you know, here's where we're at. And, you know, like Lisa said, the kudos, great, congratulations, but also like, hey, we have some work to do. And again, like you were also saying, Lisa, about the math across the state is sad. It really is. But we're focusing on where we're at, and this helps us say, okay, we're worried about where our kids are at and how can we improve their mathematical abilities so they can, you know, succeed in the real world. So.
And the question was asked if this was compared to all schools or charters. Excuse me. It is going to mostly be charters, mostly because the filter that we did check on this to find like schools is K-12, and there are not too many non-charter schools that serve the full K-12 spectrum, right? There are a few of them out there, but I would say that this is largely going to be charters, not through any intent, but just because of that K-12 charter. But as a whole, it was just any K-12 school out there.
And I think it's probably good to just note, when you see those screenshots, part of Parsec's platform for this comparison purpose is for charter, trying to really look at where would these kiddos be going if we weren't here? Like, what are all the options around us? And are we contributing, right? Are we contributing to the opportunity for parents to choose really great places for their kids?
Mm.
So within that comparison tool, you can change, we want people in this region. And like one of the things that's important is comparing apples to apples, because when you look at that comparison chart, it's really interesting. If you just go in and look at a region, you'll find a school, you may be low in the, you might look like you're not performing. Start looking at the ones at the top. And if I'm just being honest, it's like super low socioeconomic disadvantage status, super low English language learning, super low. So, you just start to see, I'm glad those kids have those schools, but we also want to try to compare apples to apples when it comes to student groups. And that's why enrollment is so important, is kiddos that enter your building every day are so critically important to the story of growth. So if you're a charter that, is in a really wealthy community with a lot of parents and all the support is there, and I'm glad you're there. I'm glad that's the role you play. But you need to compare yourself to people that are in that same demographic to see if, like, comparing, are we contributing to the overall options in our region? So being able to pull down those different filters, then you're able to see, okay, these are people that are serving similar students to us. And I'll be honest, it really does kind of cut through some of the ambiguity, because that's where hard conversations happen. Because when you pull it down to just people like you serving the same kinds of kids, then you do kind of say, oh, wow, we are doing well here. But it also highlights, oh, wow, this is an area we need to focus. Like, we need to improve here. So I think that tool really helps you kind of nuance, who are we comparing ourselves to?
Right. Well, now we'll shift over to local assessment data, right? This was all statewide comparisons on that, but we have the fortune, at least right now, of being able to consider local assessment as well. And so iReady being your particular assessment of choice there, we got the kind of growth thresholds, right, directly from Curriculum Associates. They published a resource for charters as it related to, like, these are sort of like your thresholds of, like, if you can get to this level. So for example, your K-5 students, if they're at 75% progress toward their typical growth, that is sort of the analogous to making 1 year's typical growth to them. So we could see here that in, of your students in K-5, or I guess 3-5, we had every single grade level, your median student was at or above those thresholds. And in some cases, well above, like your 5th grade was at 111% of their growth targets. And so I'd love to just kind of hear from you, like, the importance and the impact that the use of local assessments had on your overall renewal petition.
Yeah, I think the verifiable data, that was, in all honesty, kind of new for us. And in really looking at that data, what the state will accept as verifiable data, it was definitely different. And in all honesty, it wasn't until we met with our charting through CSDC that really helped us to see, hey, the thresholds are different in iReady, and we didn't know that. So that really helped to tell our story a little bit differently and a little more positively, like brought smiles to our faces. But really digging into the verifiable data and to see how it works, that's what really, I felt anyway, really helped to swing the vote, hopefully, because, we could show, not just based on the dashboard, not just based on one test, that, hey, what we're doing is working, and we have these other sources to verify that. Unfortunately, the verifiable data, according to what CDE says, is going away in January, and they're going to focus more on the growth data from the dashboard. So that's going to be very interesting to see. So it's definitely something everyone needs to keep an eye on. But for sure, that verifiable data, really digging deep into that and like I said, Parsec really helped us with that, because you don't have a chart like this normally, and Adam had to create it a little bit for us with that threshold line. So that was really helpful, really just digging into the verifiable data with Parsec, and what does this look like? How can we show because every chartering authorizer is a little bit different, how they maybe want to see the data, and that's something we've always said, okay, how do we show this data without it just being, a Google chart or something? And so this really helped to clear the picture. And I think even, Adam, you correct me if I'm wrong, but even just starting out, just looking at how to present this, we changed our minds along the way. Like, what do you think? Because we always have to remember our audience, right? We want our families, we want our staff, and as well as our authorizer to be able to understand the data. And we also, Lisa gets the wonderful job of getting up there in front of the county board and explaining it. So we need to make sure that we can explain it. So that, I feel like, was a huge piece of the verifiable data.
Well, and I remember when you guys gave me this resource from Curriculum Associates, it was eye-opening to me, because I've worked for them for 5 years and had no idea that they actually had alternate guidelines. Because again, we always talked about 100% toward typical growth would be kind of where you want your students by the end of the year. But they actually, and I appreciate it, they actually went in and factored in things like the error measure and some of those real statistics to really support. It's just like, and I think it's a testament to their support for their charter world as well. It's just like, well, yes, ideally 100%, but if we get down to the really statistical significance of this, here's where we're finding these numbers to land. And so when you shared that to me, it really made my day, because I was able to go back. Now it was already looking good for math. I'm sorry, for reading here, because we can see that even in your 6 through 8, really there were basically grade 7 and grade 4 were the only ones that were not at 100% already. But by having these redefined cut points, now we could, basically change the story definitively, and with the amount of integrity that we need to operate in, saying, yes, at least, the median student in each of these grade levels is meeting the required kind of threshold from the publisher to say that they are making adequate growth in that year. And I thought that that was a really powerful add to your data story.
Yeah, and one of the things we learned from that, and just this actually came back after our initial presentation. So something just to remember is that 95% participation not only is for the CASP and CAST, right? LPAC, it's also for your verifiable data. So that's one thing you want to continue to monitor. And in all honesty, it wasn't something, I mean, of course, we try to get 100%, but as you all know, attendance, they don't show up or whatever. But that's also something that came out of us, that out of this, that we're monitoring a lot more closely than I would say we have in the past, because like I said, the verifiable data really helped to cement our story in a positive light.
Very well. All right, so that was just some of the snapshots of some of the data. Again, it wasn't a comprehensive overview of all the data that we did share throughout this, but really just want to kind of transition now, as we're kind of coming on the tail end of this, is just kind of an overall reflection. What are some of the key learnings that came out of the experience through this that not only help to just understand your current reality and to make a strong and compelling case for renewal, but are also serving as to sort of reframe and reshape your work going forward? What are some of the things that will change going forward? And you mentioned it just now, Heather, about being far more in tune to the participation rates, right? Like, that's not something that was necessarily top of mind, but will now be a much more important thing going forward. I'm sure, I know I would, but the rest of the group would love to hear, like, how does your day-to-day changed after having gone through this whole renewal cycle?
I can share. I feel like At the Lewis Center, we've always treated our authorizer relationship a lot like a marriage, right? Like I hopefully Angel, I don't know, Angel, if we're like married, but we very much pay attention to that relationship and want to make sure that it's strong. We also are very embedded in our communities and involved, and so enjoy a lot of community support, but now that's not enough. And so especially when we found ourselves in low performing track, which is a place we never wanted to be, we really had to look at everything differently, and we really had to play the game, learn to how to play the game, and dig into those nuances in ways that we haven't before. And have different types of data informed conversations with our staff, with our students at the individual level, and with our families and with our board. And so I think that that's something that learning is carrying us through, and we have to approach things very differently. We have, as an entire team, really, really paid attention to the dashboard. We are predicting where we're going to fall. We are making decisions, like Heather said, based upon like putting a lot of resources where we can make gains and being very intentional about that. We've made staffing changes, maybe moving grade levels to meet individual teachers' strengths and in testing areas. We just really had to look at data to inform every decision, and also really dig in. We're attending like anything that our county's offering about accountability, just trying to make sure that we're really lined up and tight so that we don't find ourselves in this position again. And so I think that's, and then I think the other big thing for us is that it's been really nice to have partners. So, Suzanne, we talked about, from CSDC and Parsec and our authorizer and our instructional leadership team, all of us being thought partners together so that we find the things that help us with the renewal so that we can do the good work with our kids and serving our school community. That's still, although we have to play the game a little bit, right, to get our renewal and to make sure that we're showing those bumps. At the end of the day, what we really care is that our student learning outcomes are where they need to be and that people are benefiting from our school. So I think that has changed.
Awesome. Heather, is there anything you want to add?
There's so much. I'm thinking of the data story. I think some of the changes that I've seen personally in some of the things I oversee, like the LCAP and so forth. I mean, we're really digging deeper into the data than we ever have before. I think we're paying more attention to subgroups, really looking at it, because really looking at that and how our students and what their needs are, and making sure that we apply programs, funding, and so forth to those. I also think that, like Lisa said, we really had to figure out the dashboard, and, if anybody has a magic formula, we are all ears, but we have really, really dug deep in how, how they figure things and our practices, and redoing some of those things and keeping on top of, what is happening and where our story is at right at this moment. I don't think in years past, I could tell you exactly what our chronic absenteeism is right at this moment of the school year. Does that kind of make sense? Like we're really trying to look at those things deeper. So I would think that is part of it. I also think bringing our school community together, as Lisa was saying, I think the transparency to our teachers and all our staff, like, this is where we're at and this is what we need. When I go to the Norton campus, I was just there yesterday, Lisa's there today. You just feel it, like they are all in it. Testing starts on Monday with our 11th graders, and they're on it. The posters are out and the teachers are talking to students. Our proctors are talking to students about that. So I think that transparency and it was scary. I'm not gonna lie, it was nerve-wracking. And I just think that us having that data, sharing those experiences with staff really helped to bring a tighter culture to our school, and it's visible when you go there. And I think that has been tremendous coming out of this experience. And again, Parsec was a huge help to that. So,
Yep.
Perfect.
all right.
So I would like to open up the space for any of our audience members to either come off mute. Now's your chance to ask any questions about anything, or even just provide any commentary, something that really stood out to you. So is there anybody you'd like to come off mute and share?
I'd be interested in hearing a little bit about any tools or applications that you use to help manage this process in its entirety, and maybe learning a little more about your timeline. When did you start? When was it important to bring in certain key players? We know that the review of data and getting smart on it early was really important in your process. But if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah,
that'd
I
be
can
helpful.
share. We were ready to renew a year prior, but together with our authorizer, we were hoping we were going to come out of low performing track, right? We were so close. Like I thought we had it and we didn't. So we actually delayed till December. Normally our process would start in July, where we first start working with our authorizer, like we have our draft ready and they can look it over. So we did start later this year than we've done in the past. And as far as tools, our team uses just Google Docs. And then that way we could give Adam and his team access, our team. We can let our authorizer see it. Our attorneys are able to. We work with YMNC, and they're able to go through and update so that everybody just can. It's a working document. Is that what you were looking for, David?
Yeah.
Yeah, and anybody, I'm happy to share like I don't know if anybody else is finding themselves in low performing track, but I think one of the biggest struggles that we had this time was we had to come up with an academic improvement plan, but there weren't any, right? So we didn't know what that looked like, what we were supposed to do. There wasn't a template. So if anybody wants to see what we did come up with, we're happy to share that with you. And anything else that we have, happy to share. Just I'll put my email here in the chat. Feel free to email us and we'll get over to you, because no reason to duplicate any work.
We actually lucked out, I think, middle performing, timing wise, but we anticipate that will change in the future. So sharing that document, I think, would be really helpful.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And then the way this goes now, both of our charters are going to be in renewal at the same time. Hopefully both be middle performing track or even maybe high performing track for our other school in Apple Valley. But yeah, it's a beast. This low performing track is a whole new world. And it's hard to get out once you're in.
Ask
I'd love
the
to hear any other
participation question.
Yeah.
Do you struggle because we're an independent study charter, so we have a demographic of parents who, the government is evil and we're never going to test. So we struggle with that. Usually in the high 80s, sometimes we crack 90, but we can never seem to get to that 95%. So I'm assuming your charter is a 5-day a week in-house.
We are, both of them are, but
Okay.
that is a struggle. We're having more opt-outs at our school in Apple Valley, I think, than we've had in years past, especially within our special education department. And it's like educating your community that we respect your opinion and whatnot, but we are at the end of the day evaluated this way.
Right. So, I'll say just in general, our CAS scores are kind of, I'll just say like, a heart line. They're kind of dead and just staying the same all the time. But, getting those zeros for non-participation, but at least our iReady scores show that we're advancing. So we have both the good and the bad, but
Yeah.
participation is a big part of that.
Where are
Yeah.
you guys located, BJ?
Nevada City, Truckee, Auburn
Okay.
area.
Okay.
So yeah, and especially in the Nevada City area, there's definitely that population who are very, wary of, it sounds mean to say, but they're just wary of what, state testing. Why are we giving them this information? So it's a struggle for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just educating parents, I know I say that, I just had another opt-out this morning. So I'm getting a little nervous. But yeah, I think just educating the parents and again, telling the story. They're at your school for this reason. Our school has to follow these guidelines and we
Mhm.
need your participation. I mean, maybe it goes back to, and again, you're probably already doing this, but just that transparency with the families, we have to do this to exist,
Mhm.
Thank you.
It's nice to know we're not alone, though,
for sure.
in all of these struggles.
Well, we're at the 1 o'clock point. So
Yeah.
I did promise Lisa and Heather I would conclude us with a nice poem celebrating their renewal.
Yes.
So there you go. It's in chat. You're welcome.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh, look at this.
You're not going to read it for us, Marshall? We need the tone.
No.
We need the
not
inflection.
I
gonna
want it
read it in
danced
like
out,
a-
Marshall.
Can't read it in like an epic, like this. I'm not gonna spoken word this thing. Sorry, guys. You're just gonna have to go with it.
I will say that Norton Science and Language Academy has the state runner-up. Tucci is the state runner-up out of 17,000 participants in Poetry Out Loud. So maybe I'll give this to Tucci and she can do some recitation. That is very cool. Yes, I agree, Ryan. Where is the interpretive dance to go with? We expect that in our next session, Marshall.
Claude AI did not
Sorry,
suggest
Marshall.
the interpretive dance moves. Sorry.
And this QR code is your perfect opportunity because this feedback form is really just a way to solicit like what else you would like to see in these webinars, if there are other topics that you would find to be of special interest. So we'd love to hear that feedback. And if interpretive dance is a must-have, then just let it in there and we'll change Marshall's title again from whatever it is this week to Director of Interpretive Dance. And so we'll leave you with this. We hope that you'll take a few moments, scan the QR code, and then just give us some feedback on this and as well as some topics that you might feel to be of interest in the future. And you are at this point free to roam about the cabin. If there's anything else. Oh, hang on.
I'm about the cabin.
I was told that there's another slide before this, but I think I have to jump out and refresh to do something. Oh, here we also have our Parsec summary. Here we go. And
Oh, your t-shirt giveaway.
there we go.
I want a Parsec t-shirt.
I think we deserve some Parsec t-shirts this year at CSDC.
There we go.
This is a game, so don't jump
Oh,
out. You get to play the
amazing.
Hey,
game.
it's a
Will it
game?
be-
On the wheel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hang on, apparently I have to spin this wheel of
Oh yeah.
Meat.
This is so
Oh,
fun.
Oh, fun.
winner.
This is new. Brandon,
Please,
this makes
Brandon.
it so fun. I'm excited.
Oh, this is cute.
Okay, click it.
I'm
Adam, I
fun.
want to see who wins.
Da-da-da.
Oh.
Oh, David just left.
David.
He just
He
left, too.
left.
Must
I
be
like
present to
that.
win. All right,
Cute.
let's try this again.
All right, we'll do it again. He
Da-da-da.
just left.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh.
It looks like it's BJ.
BJ.
Yay.
Parsec
There you go,
t-shirt.
BJ.
Right on.
Nice.
Well, as I said to you before, Adam, I love you guys so much. I am always, when you guys need the commercial, I'm your man.
That's
All
how
right.
I feel too,
Yeah.
BJ.
All right. Well, then you'll have the t-shirt to represent on said commercial.
Right on. I'm more of a, face for radio kind of thing. My voice will be good for you guys.
I'm in the same boat with you. I don't know why they have me and why they used my picture on the game here, because there are far better looking people at Parsec than that guy. So, all right. Well, hey guys, thank you so much for joining us and for sticking around. Lisa, Heather, thank you guys. You guys are awesome, and we love our partnership with you. And
Love our partnership with you.
we'll see you all next time.
Great. Charter leaders for the win.
Woohoo!
Talk soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Thank you.